Greetings. My name is Mike Fluke, and you're watching the Philo Republic podcast. And apparently, the picturesque island of Siargao was promised to God's chosen people 4,000 years ago. Well. It appears as though Jews and Israelis are walking around like they own the place. And no, I'm not talking about Gaza. I'm talking about the picturesque island of Siargao here in the Philippines. And more on that in a moment. I just thought I'd give you guys a little channel update. So I was doing the panels, the discussion panels with somewhere between 2 to 5 lovely Filipino ladies to talk about love, dating, to give men in the West an inside look at what ladies are really like right now in the Philippines. And if you are heading this way, as a passport bruh or a digital nomad or a retiree, if you're heading out to the Philippines, there's a good chance that dating is going to be a part of that equation. So I took it upon myself to make a fresh and fit style, a whatever podcast style discussion panel. And I did it for a little while. And it cost me a lot of money. It cost me about $50 per head to do an episode. And then there's a whole bunch of other services I need to do. And it was going pretty good. A little bit of duct tape production, but it was going okay. But I'm just going to put that on pause. I have a new goal. Instead of grifting you guys for money, because now I have all the gear that I need, instead, just because it is like herding cats and it is bleeding me money, I thought I'll make a new goal first. My new goal, before I go back into doing regular discussion panels, is to reach 800 subscribers on YouTube. I figure if I do that, then I've got enough of an audience to make it worth my while. In the meantime, however, though, I'm going to continue to do these videos as well as react videos where I get 1 or 2 solo Filipinas and we have a little nice conversation, over a cup of coffee. And then after that, we react to some crazy Western hellscape feminist Instagrams and TikTok reels. So if that sounds like fun, stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and all of that good stuff. If you would like to support the channel and maybe squeeze another panel out of me, which I would love, you can support the channel by joining the members only community or scanning the QR code on your screen to figure out how you can join the members only community, or drop us a little donation, because that's nice. Everybody likes that. But yeah, and then the ladies that do come on the show, because I don't want to give them a big barrage of, gentlemen from the West messaging them and all that stuff, I do offer their social media contact information if they choose to volunteer it. And that's usually in the members only community. So every video I do, below the video, I will post the social media contact information of the ladies that come on the show if they so choose. So without further ado, I'm not going to get into what's going on with what's going on with Israel and all that fun stuff. I really don't have a dog in that fight, and it's not my circus. They're not my monkeys. And frankly, I think both sides generally suck. So this isn't in any way connected really, except for some of the circumstantial points that are made in this video, which are not by me. They're by people that are in the video. I'm not going to get into that whole thing, but yeah. So apparently, all is not well in the island of Siargao. There's been some issues with Israeli/Jewish tourists coming in hot out of the war, young men causing trouble and havoc, and they're kind of starting to reclaim. No, they're kind of, it seems that they're trying to own the space over in Siargao, and that's not my opinion. That is the opinion of the locals. So for this one, we're going to go over what's going on with Israel today in Siargao, and then we're going to look at some video of some actual eyewitness accounts that were recorded on camera, and then we're going to wrap it up with an article that comes out of Israel about their future plans for Southeast Asia. So now let's take a look at how the Philippines is being culturally enriched and how the locals feel about it. Filipinos are pushing back against growing Israeli presence on popular tourist island. Concerns over the presence of Israeli visitors are growing on a southern Philippine island, locals say, as they protest plans to establish an Israeli community center amid fears of displacement and reports of tourist misconduct. Siargao, a resort island off Siargao del Norte province in Mindanao, is the Philippines' premier surfing site and one of the country's top tourist destinations. It has lately become popular among Israelis, whose arrival over the past few months has resulted in numerous complaints. Siargao-based singer and community organizer Maria Lelaine Tokong, sorry if I botched your name, Maria, went viral last week when she highlighted that many of the tourists were disregarding the culture, the customs of the place, and that they are feeling less at home in their own home. She speaks up because she refuses to let their joint identity and their peace and their safety be erased. So her post has since resulted in tens of thousands of interactions with Filipinos sharing similar concerns. It came against the backdrop of Israel plans to open a Shabbat house, which is a Jewish community center and place of worship on the island. The plans have been opposed by the local community, which later met Israeli embassy representatives in May, and they say that they don't want it. When we talked about the cultural center with the Israeli embassy, we specifically told them, what is the purpose? We already have an education system. We already have a church here. With new officials taking office following recent elections, she is now preparing with other community members to take the case forward with the local administration. In April, Project Paradise, a Siargao-based non-governmental organization, held a town hall with residents and local business owners to gather their complaints. We received reports primarily regarding disrespect for local customs and values, ranging from noise disturbances, reckless driving, disregard for modesty in dress in rural areas, to environmental irresponsibility, such as leaving trash on beaches or protected areas. And that was Sophia Nicole Diasis, the president of Project Paradise. And that's what she told Arab News. The incidences are not isolated to any one group, and our stance has always been that misconduct is a behavioral issue, not a nationality-based one, she added. So she's being a little politically correct on that, because I do think nationality matters, because within the borders of nations is culture, and from culture comes behavior. So loving that cultural enrichment, I am sure. Project Paradise also had separate meetings with Israeli embassy representatives, who they said had clearly explained that the planned development of the Shabbat house in Siargao is not meant for disruptive gatherings. For us, this development doesn't pose an issue. So the Israeli embassy thinks it doesn't pose an issue in a country that is not theirs. But being Jewish is not a nationality, and our mission is not to police identity, but to promote coexistence, responsibility, and respect for the island. And when you watch the video that will follow this, you can be the judge of whether that's actually what they're doing. So far, no accountability is being taken. Doesn't even look like an apology has been issued. Our focus is on behavior, not background. Oh yeah, oops, I already read that part. Yeah, we believe that any effort, be it from a local or foreign entity, that respects the cultural fabric of Siargao and contributes positively to the community, should be met with openness, not division. So, across the island, however, growing complaints over the treatment of locals by Israeli tourists have also featured on Facebook group Siargao Business Classified 2.0. So if you want to check out that group, if you're a foreigner living here and you want to go be a fly on the wall, you can go check that group out. I'm going to join it right after doing this video. In numerous posts, members of the group report Israelis calling local staff slaves. That's not nice. I wonder if they called them goyim too. And they're illegally raising their flags on boats, trashing local homestays, violating the island's no noise curfew past midnight, and verbally and physically assaulting locals, which you will also see on the video that's upcoming. They have no right to put up a cultural center, as they have no roots or connection to Filipinos' history. Free Palestine today, so we won't be shouting free Siargao tomorrow, one user wrote, as others complained over inaction from the island's administration. Now, I think that is a little bit of a self-own, but I will have to elaborate that with a concrete example, but that's just a prelude. These people were welcomed into our country and treated with genuine hospitality, yet they choose to disregard our laws and disrespect our people and communities. The local government of Siargao should strictly enforce all local rules and regulations, another user said. For the local government in Siargao, you better act. Remember, you're still part of the Philippines. You might one day be surprised that Siargao is now the promised land, another user commented. Officials in General Luna, one of the main towns on Siargao, did not respond to requests for comment from Arab News. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of kind of like the timeline of what's going on. So let's just kind of hop over to my notes here. But before I continue, I just want to elaborate for locals. There is a difference between an Israeli and a Jew. Israeli refers to a citizen or resident of the modern state of Israel, while Jewish refers to a person who practices the religion of Judaism or who is of Jewish descent. While many Israelis are Jewish, not all Jews are Israeli. So that's a little bit of background, just kind of going into it. The video that I'm going to show you very shortly, the source is a man that identifies as a woman named Alexis Gumera, but I'll get to that shortly. So the legal complaints, or the local complaints right now, are the displacement of small businesses. Locals claim Israeli-run hostels, bars, and tour outfits undercut prices, then dominate key areas of the tourism market. If you know, you know. Rowdy behavior, complaints of loud parties, public drunkenness, reckless driving, and trash. Some locals describe feeling talked down to, or that Israelis act like they own the place, in quotations. Cultural disrespect. Building a Shabbat house without consulting the community made some residents feel that their island was being colonized. And then as well, there's price inflation as wealthier tourists, especially from Israeli groups, cluster around Israeli-owned establishments. The surrounding rents, land values, and food prices rise, pushing local outs, but that money is not going back into local businesses because they're kind of monopolizing the area. So some allege that Israeli business groups work together tightly, giving each other, preferences and making it harder for independent Filipino operators to complete. So giving you an example, you go to a hostel, you're a young buck fresh out of the Israel military after taking out some hospitals, little kids, and journalists, and you want to relax and go surfing in Siargao. Well, then, the owner of the hostel will be like, hey, go see my friend Zohan, he's got the best tours. And nobody fucks with the Zohan, right? So Adam Sandler reference number one. But yeah, so hiring practices, they're actually taking Israeli staff, they're hiring Israeli staff, and they're taking Israeli volunteers who are just there. I guess maybe they're getting like free accommodation, and then they're doing the whole like hippie thing where they can kind of live at the hostel if they help out at the hostel, which is very common with foreigners all around Southeast Asia. And then the sabotage claim has been made by a few articles from local press. And they're using the word sabotage because locals believe Israelis aren't just competing, they're deliberately squeezing out Filipino enterprises to own the scene. So it's cultural insult layered over economics, complaints about being treated as goyim. Oh, they actually mentioned that on the chat GPT. Rudeness or loud and drunk behavior make business competition, it just makes it feel like a cultural conquest, really. There's a loss of ownership. Filipinos feel that their island is slipping away from our home to someone else's playground. And there is a power imbalance that is felt. Israelis often arrive with more money, networks, and confidence in dealing with bureaucracy, which locals read as an organized takeover rather than fair competition. So now here's the timeline. There were rising tensions late last year into early 2025. The locals had accused, some of the Israeli tourists and business owners of rudeness, arrogance, drunkenness, lots of trash, reckless behavior, cultural disregard, ignoring local norms. And it's kind of when the economic strain, post-pandemic and all of that, it started to intensify. And that's when locals started to kind of stir up their complaint about, the economic sabotage that they're experiencing. Organized pushback came between May and July of this year. Local protests and statements by that pop star or pop singer that I mentioned earlier, Maria Tokong, and the non-government organizations. they started to do protests anywhere where there was like a Zionist, signage or anything to do. They would stick like a sticker over it. I haven't seen one of the stickers, so I don't know if it's anti-Zionist or I don't know what it says. But there are religious tensions that are now coming to the fore as well. Activist groups cover Zionist stickers, symbolically resist Shabbat expansion. And remember, the Shabbat house, they did it without consulting the locals at all. And I just think that's a little, it does kind of fall into the colonization area. But I'm sure some foreigners would disagree, like I know that it's not colonization if an Italian is going to come here and then make a pizza parlor, sorry to be culturally, binary on that. I'm not trying to lump everybody into a pizza making, if you're Italian, but you get the idea. It's not like, like if a bunch of Dutch people come and they start selling wooden shoes, it's not like they're colonizing. I'm Dutch, so I'm allowed to say that. But so then in July, between July and August, the government started to get involved. So the Department of Tourism, they addressed the concerns publicly and they liaised with the Israeli embassy. And the embassy does promise to monitor nationals and promote mutual respect. You can't legislate decency, though. So I just don't see how that's going to really work. I mean, they are Israeli. And I will get into my own personal experience with Israeli tourists shortly. But the embassy promises to monitor them and see what's up. And the NGO voices stress that the problem is behavior, not nationality, urging sensitivity training and balance. So now the Philippines they're playing into that whole cultural enrichment game where, they just need sensitivity training. So a Shabbat house, it's basically like a fork off of the Shabbat Lubavitch, which is a global Hasidic Jewish movement headquartered in New York. And if you do recall, in New York a couple of years ago, there was the weird Jewish tunnels underneath New York City. And they discovered rooms and whatnot underneath the city. There's some famous video of a Jewish in full, like Weird Al Yankovic, climbing out of a sewer and like running away. Like this actually happened. And then when they looked into the rooms, they found a mattress with blood all over it. So it's kind of got human trafficking vibes as well. So I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the kind of tourist you want in a country that's already known for PDF files to call home here. It is a growing problem. And as a father of 2 young children, that is a concern for me as well. I will be steering clear. But so a Shabbat house is a religious and community center, and I'm not painting everybody with the same brush. Okay, I'm not. But culture is culture, and behavior comes from culture. So I am not mocking any descendants of the son of Noah, whose name was Shem, and that's where the term anti-Semite comes from. How do you know if you're making fun of anybody that's a direct descendant of that guy? Don't know, but apparently. Anyway, so they offer kosher food and Shabbat meals. They have holiday services, study and prayer, and help for Jewish travelers, especially in backpacker hubs like Thailand, India, and Philippines. And I really do think that they're putting a target on the back, considering we do have a very active Muslim community inside of this country as well. And I just feel like it's just, if it continues to kind of boil over, it's not going to be a good scene. I've got videos about that as well. But they do exist almost everywhere. Pretty much everywhere Jewish tourists travel, or Israeli tourists travel, from Cusco, Peru, to Goa, India, to Bangkok, but not in Mumbai. Because apparently in 2008, they weren't having any of that shit. And there was a mass unaliving in Mumbai, because it appears that they just that the Indians weren't going to have it. So, but in essence, it is a complicated situation. There are already 5 pre-existing Shabbat houses in the Philippines. Manila in Makati has been culturally enriched by one. Cebu has. Angeles City has. Of course, Angeles City has. Come on. Davao City and, El Nido, and now Siargao. So Palawan, where I am now, and then Siargao as well. So they've already got a network of them, and they actually have, the octopus has tentacles all over Southeast Asia. Don't want to do this too much in the video. That'll be a nasty screenshot. Don't mean to trigger the left or the right. but I'm sure I'm triggering both. Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Singapore, and the Philippines are all culturally enriched with Shabbat houses. And some locals in these areas do suspect that there's a cover because of the visibility and wealth. They often look well-funded and well-staffed in places with small Jewish populations, and they're wondering, who's paying for this? And because of the ramped-up security after what happened in Mumbai, after the 2008 mass unaliving, they've been ramping up security in Shabbat houses around Asia. And, if things get tense, then now they're going to have their own private security as well in a foreign country. And then because of the overlap with Israeli travelers, again, some people think it's a cover operation because they're like, there's a lot of dovetailing between Israeli soldiers that are coming here on holiday. And then some people are wondering if maybe there's more to it than that. And they are kind of acting like an NGO, but they're not going through the proper processes for that. So it is an issue. It is an issue. And if we're going to get all biblical or ecclesiastical on this one, I will just remind, people who aren't too familiar with the Bible, this is a Christian country after all. And we are talking about a religious institution springing up in Siargao. There's Ecclesiastes 8 verse 11 points out that when the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. So simply put, if they don't address this and nip this in the bud immediately, there's going to be tensions. There's going to be tensions. We've already got Filipinos being very misinformed about what's happening with Gaza. Like I've already said, I think both sides suck. I don't think that my kind have anything to do with that place. The political state of Israel has nothing to do with anything that was forecast in the Bible. It is a political entity. It is not a religious entity. Church and state, all of that. So I don't believe in supporting either side of this. It's, again, not my fight. But let's take a little look at the behavior that the locals are actually experiencing, because I think when you see the behavior, it's a little enraging. So I turned off the sound for this, but you can see this young little Twinkie guy causing trouble with the locals. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened with him. Where's my source here? So just going to read this. This is where the cell phones kind of happen on both sides. So you've already seen the cell phone. The Israeli guy is not really doing his country any service from a PR perspective. But then you'll see the culture incompatibility, and the self-colonization of Filipinos when they don't quite understand what's going on over there. Hey, Siargao, please let me share an incident that happened last night. We have never been disrespected and assaulted like this in the years we've been living here. After a night out, my friends and I went to eat at Shotzi before heading home when a man came in and looked at our group, probably wanting to say hello. So that's nice. The Filipina sees this Israeli guy, probably a little more inebriated, as you'll find out later, than maybe is a good idea to walk around in public in a conservative country like the Philippines. But anyway, so he just stands in front of their table and looks at them. And the first instinct of the Filipina, or Filipino in this case, is to think, oh, he probably wants to say hello. Let's find out what he was really thinking. Okay. Being friendly, we said hi and asked where he was from. He said he is from Israel, so one of our friends said, great, we have friends from Israel as well. The man then said, yes, Israel is the most powerful country in the world. They don't pull any punches, do they? As banter, we said no. He then proceeded to say, yes, that is why we unalive all of Palestine. He said this while standing up, facing the whole group and in a very proud way. That got everyone's attention and made the whole place disagree with him. His arrogance led our friend to shout, free Palestine. Because tension was high, the guy went back to their hotel as he was just staying in the accommodation across the road. Moments after, he went out with his group of friends, probably 5 to 7 other people, and they called their attention and said, hey, you guys, do you like to bang ladyboys, they used the F word. But this obviously triggered everyone, especially us trans girls, as we felt personally attacked and insulted. So what we've got here is an Israeli man, boy, Twinkie-looking little fucker, and he walks in, and he just stands in front of their table, a table of trans girls, men who identify as women, or boys who identify as girls, and he just stands there, and he's probably biting his tongue, deciding how, if he should pop the can open or not, and he decides not to. But he does go on his tirade about, all that Israeli greatness. And then the trans girls, not knowing about the rooftop celebrations they have in Palestine, in Gaza, where if you are an alphabet person with a rainbow flag, or whatever flag it is that's popular today, they will throw you from that rooftop. So make it make sense. And I kind of wonder if that's what made the Israeli guy pop off. Because, seeing a trans person defend Palestine to an Israeli that's drunk, it's just a recipe for disaster. Both sides, again, suck. So anyway, my opinions will now no longer be spoken for the rest of the video. So basically, after being triggered, we personally felt attacked and insulted. We approached them, but it turned violent real quick. They started throwing stones at us. The Israelis started stoning trans people. Culture breeds behavior. And this one hit a local girl, I'll put air quotes on that one, on the ear. And the guy friends that the trans people were with were provoked by the attack. So a loud discussion happened after that. This went on for a bit until a roving patrol saw us. And I have included videos of what transpired. So they're posting it because they would like to raise awareness of the terror of some of these people bringing to the, or some of these people are bringing to this peaceful island, their arrogance, entitlement, and aggression, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So let's continue this video with this Twinkie looking motherfucker. And I'm not a fan of Israelis, to be honest with you. When I lived in Chiang Mai for a number of years, I even wrote a best-selling book about it. It was a guide, a digital nomad guide. But when I lived there for a while, I used to like to escape the city and go to this little place in the mountains called Pai. And Pai was awesome. It was like a hippie paradise before before herbal remedies were legal. You could go there and just have no problem. They even had like a circus school where you could learn to spin fire and all this other cool hippie shit. And it was fun, and I had a good time there. And then I don't know, man. It's like one day, I guess the draft completed with the year that I was there, and just the entire city just flooded with Israelis. Now, the only upside to that is that I got passed around like a doobie at a party by 5, Israeli ladies that decided to be communal with with me. And, they were all like Gal Gadot looking Wonder Woman types, and it was pretty amazing. But the dudes, man, the dudes, they're always walking around like a big swinging dick. And you saw the type. That's the exact same type that I experienced too. It's the dudes. The girls aren't much better though, because they act like dudes too, in my experience, in my lived experience. So I don't know, man. I don't care what the fuck is going on over there. I better not do that. I'm going to get in trouble. But I really don't know what's going on over there, and I don't really care. I just don't like it when they pack their shit up and they bring it over here. So I guess that about wraps up that whole personal account, the timeline, and all of that. But what's next? Where is this all headed? And I just think it's good to know. I think it's good to know, where this is headed. So let's take a look at this article coming out of Israel National News, and I'm not going to get too much into this unless it's really captivating. But as the West dies, I wonder why. As the West dies, Israel's future lies with rising Asia. Lucky us, eh? Lucky for us. Israel shares increasingly fewer values with the leftist West. I wonder why. Well-funded leftist West. Wonder where they get that money. But which in its bid to destroy itself has abandoned its history, culture, uniqueness, and belief in itself. They cry out as they strike you. So basically, since its founding, Israel believed that it could develop alliances, and alliances it has, especially dancing ones. But they believe that it could develop alliances with Western countries because they shared ancient values of our Judeo-Christian heritage, which to me makes absolute no sense when you read the Talmud, and they believe that Jesus is burning alive in hot feces, human feces, and that it's okay to be with a young one as long as she is 3 years plus a day. It's not a sin. It's not a sin, but it's also not a sin, and they actually felt the need to document that in the Talmud. Totally not weird at all. So I think the whole Judeo-Christian thing is silly, and I think that, again, Israel it's a political entity. It is not anything I've ever read in the Bible. Thank you very much. We also believe that such alliances were natural joining, since we Jews had much in common with Western civilization. Yeah, like Babylon, or like with the Bolsheviks in the USSR, or Weimar Germany. What books did they burn? But the 77-year history of Israelis' diplomatic alliances, and I think Israel is 75 years old? So it went really well for the first 2 years, I guess. They appear that those diplomatic alliances with the West appear to be ending. In other words, it's the 110th country that we got booted out of, maybe. I guess the West isn't a country, but maybe the Philippines will be the 110th. But basically, they just see that they have disturbingly little in common with the dying West. So, blah, blah, blah. For Israel is everything that the Western left hates. I mean, that is interesting. They're nationalistic, patriotic, blah, blah, blah. The West, however, blah, blah, blah. And because the long history of the Jews always repeats itself from their own mouth, the West hates the religion of Judaism for the same... No, I don't... I think people just don't like certain behaviors. I think that's all. And how they spend their money. George Soros, anyone? So long history, blah, blah, blah. So the question is, with what countries should Israel join? For this brief moment, many countries in Eastern Europe are seeking deeper relations with Israel, motivated by fears of being overrun by Russia, blah, blah, blah. I'll just want to get to the point about Asia. Further, as the nations of Southeast Asia are threatened by a hostile China, they increasingly are attracted to Israel's high-tech, sophisticated armaments and battlefield know-how. That's completely funded by the United States. In non-military fields, Asia seeks access to Israel's vast agricultural expertise, breakthroughs in water usage, medical advancements, university exchanges, and the many businesses and societal benefits that Israel can offer. Additionally, let us not forget that today these Asian countries have the capital, the manufacturing bases, and above all, blah, 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 blah. And fundamentally, unlike Europe, they use the S word, which I don't want to say on YouTube. Europe that wants to unalive itself, the societal values of Asian countries much more closely align with the Jews. And the Asians well know that. As we see in Siargao, yeah, totally, man. Totally. They totally align. They fit right in. Anyway, so blah, 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 blah. We're turning our eyes to Southeast Asia. So if you think what's happening in Siargao looks really fun, get ready, buckle up, Buttercup, because you got more in the pipeline. So I guess with that all said, thanks for watching. My name is Mike Fluke. You've been watching the Follow Republic podcast. Stay tuned. Later this week, I will probably have another reaction episode with a lovely Filipina or two. And we'll just keep going. And like I said, if you want to support the channel, there's links in the description. If you want to join the members-only community, you can find a link for that as well. And share the video, subscribe, follow. As soon as I reach 800 subscribers, I will religiously do the discussion panels. And by then, I might even be relocating to Davao, which there'll be like a bigger crop of ladies to work with in that situation. So like I said, my name is Mike Fluke. You've been watching Follow Republic Podcast. Thank you very much for watching. And back to your regularly scheduled programming.